Hey
Hi,
everyone. Hi
how are you?
Chandler.
You look so comfy.
Oh yes, it's cozy. I don't have my
Mhm.
my Christmas tree up yet, but we're working on that. I should have had it up for this, but that's okay. So hi everyone. Hello, welcome. It's 2 p.m. on the dot. So as people start to join in, we just want to make sure that we do a little bit of housework. Everyone at this point kind of gets used to this, but I am Monique Brackett. I'm the Jamaican Rum Portfolio Ambassador for Appleton Estate and Ray and Nephew, White Overproof Rum. So we are here today, Portland Cocktail Week. We're ending off the year. We just came out of Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Everybody's finally over eating all the Thanksgiving leftovers. I think I had enough.
I never have enough. I live for leftovers.
I'll admit I still have a little bit of mac and cheese left, but
Nice.
yeah. But we're here today with one of our favorites, Chandler Tomayko. How are
Yeah.
you? How are you?
I'm good. It's finally getting cold in Texas, so I'm starting to drink more Irish coffees and rum hot toddies and bring out all of my cozy sweaters. So I'm really excited.
Yes. So you're up Dallas Fort Worth area.
I am. I am.
Right. Yeah, I went to school in Lubbock, so I know the weather that
Oh,
you're in right now. Yeah.
okay. Okay. You just kept that information up your sleeve. Okay.
Yeah.
I see
But
you.
you know, uh, Dallas Fort Worth area, especially this time of the year,
Oh.
is definitely very Christmas
Mhm.
oriented. Very much into, like you said, the hot toddies and the whiskeys. And so today, I guess we definitely want to give a little Texas, but also give a little Jamaican with
Yeah.
our Appleton Estate rum. So, you are Chandler. You are a bartender and
Mhm.
chef,
Yep.
and tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you.
Okay. So I've been in the industry for almost 20 years now. Yikes. I started off as a chef, and the first part of my career was primarily spent in Costa Rica. I lived down there for a really long time. Half my family is Costa Rican. And about 10, 12 years into being a chef, I realized I wanted to learn more. I've always been fascinated with other cultures. I just love learning about tradition and different flavors. So I came up with this cool idea where I wrote a bunch of people on the internet and found out who had grandmothers that would be willing to teach me to cook, because I figured nobody cooks better than my grandmother. I'm sure there's grandmothers out there that make amazing food. So I spent about 10 years traveling to different countries, cooking with people's grandmothers, and then helping out around their houses and stuff like that in exchange. And then I transitioned to the bar scene about 9 years ago or so. There was a little bit of overlap. And I've been doing that ever since, just to have a little more time to focus on my own projects, one of which I'll tell you later. I designed a new game, which is super exciting. But yeah, so a little cooking, a little traveling, a little bartending, and lots of really good flavors.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Thank you for coming today. And
Yeah.
and we're looking forward to this because I think it's really important for people to understand, like, there's these riffs from all around the world. And so
Mm-hmm.
today, these concoctions that you're going to make are influenced by your travels and your
Oh, yeah.
encounters with different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to that, let's do a little housekeeping. For those of
Okay.
you who are new to Portland Cocktail Week's Facebook page, please like us on Facebook. There you see the tag, facebook.com/PDXCW. Subscribe to the Portland Cocktail Week YouTube channel, as just like with the Facebook channel. There you see the address there. And of course, follow Portland Cocktail Week on Instagram. You get so many great up to date postings on their Instagram page. I'm always following, I'm religiously following. So definitely do that. And please, as we continue on in this conversation, feel free to comment below and ask lots of questions. This is a conversation, this is a flow, and here we go. So, Chandler, take it
Yes.
away.
Well, I love questions, so definitely if anybody has any questions, which I hope you will, please send them our way. But yeah, if we could get a slideshow that I haphazardly put together, it's not my forte. But yeah, we're going to celebrate creamy libations, and that's just to avoid calling it eggnog because eggnog has a certain connotation around it. Eggnog is not the same everywhere. Next slide, please. I created this map just as kind of a way to demonstrate different types of eggnogs, if you will, that are around the world, and they're all mildly similar in the sense that they're creamy, a little on the sweeter side, but that's about as far as those things go. So you have Rompope, which is in Mexico. There's a lot of other Hispanic countries that also call it that, but the recipes will vary. You have coquito, which I know so many people have heard of. Comes out of Puerto Rico. It's got that coconut flavor base, and it's delicious. Have you ever had it?
I love coquito. Love, love, love.
I mean, you're from the Caribbean, so I feel like that flavor profile is delicious for you.
Yes.
Yeah. One of my personal favorites, it's actually, I've never had it outside of Turkey, but I was in Turkey one year. It was cold, and they have this thing called salep, and they take a flour made out of the root of an orchid, and it gets dried and ground, and then it gets turned into kind of an atol. I'm trying to think of the word in English, but like a hot, creamy beverage. So you'll be on the street, and there'll be these little trucks that go around, and they have this thickened, creamy beverage, and it is so delicious. It tastes lightly floral. They sprinkle it with cinnamon, and it's so tasty. Oh my gosh. I don't think there's anywhere that makes it fresh near me, but I do know you can get the mix online, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But yeah, we also have, chilled camel's milk. I lived in Abu Dhabi for a while, and they don't do a lot of alcohol based on their religion, but they do a really interesting take on a creamy holiday concoction where they do chilled camel's milk mixed with date syrup, and it is delicious. Oh my gosh, it is so good. If you've never had date syrup, start putting it in all the things. But yeah, there's just a whole bunch of different ones. Tomayko is out of Japan. That one's probably the least creamy the way people think of like dairy creamy. It's a sweetened sake thickened with an egg yolk. It doesn't have any dairy. And then you have the Bombardino, which comes out of Italy. And there's a lot of variations to that one. There's variations with coffee. There's variations with brandy. There's variations with an egg liqueur. And it's called Bombardino because that means like little bomb. And it's because it's equal parts of like coffee and the alcohol, so it feels like a bomb when you drink it. It's quite boozy, but it's to get your blood pumping. They serve it a lot at ski resorts. But yeah, it's very tasty.
I'm sure the folks at our company, Campari, love that. So.
Oh yeah. Daniel Warlow and I have had a conversation or two about Bombardinos. They're tasty. But yeah, let's get the next slide. All right, so I like trivia. I just like fun facts. So I put these out there just so everybody could also learn some fun facts. But the cold non-alcoholic eggnog that we see all over the place in stores, especially around the holidays, only became a thing in like the 1960s. Before that, it was either you were making it yourself or maybe like at a restaurant, but you couldn't go out and buy eggnog the way we can now. And then, funny enough, it used to be really popular for the 4th of July. As a beverage, me personally, I can't imagine floating the river in July in Texas and wanting an eggnog. But who knows? Maybe things were different back then. I would not be about that. And then if you want to dive into history, if you're a history buff, there's something called the Eggnog Riot. And it was a party at the West Point Military Academy where a bunch of students snuck in a bunch of eggnog and alcohol and got drunk and rowdy and then got expelled. So that is known as the Eggnog Riot. And just fun fact, the amount of eggnog that we consume in the U.S. during the holiday season is upwards of 130 million pounds, I believe. So yeah, it's a lot of eggnog. I think I'm personally responsible for at least 20 pounds of that. Just going to say that. But yeah, those are my fun facts.
I had 2 cups this morning, so yeah.
You're putting a dent in those numbers. I like it. I like it. All right, let's hit the next slide. Okay, so my first cocktail. I draw a lot of inspiration from a lot of different things. I draw inspiration from my travels, from conversations that I have with people when I travel, and I also draw it from like traditions, old recipes, things that have always been there. My culinary teacher used to say, nothing you make has never been made before. Nothing is new. Someone's thought about it and done it. You just have to think of how can you make it yours. So a lot of the times my recipes are non-traditional and they combine a lot of different cultures and flavors all at once. And I wouldn't really call it fusion, but I would say it's heavily influenced, because I feel like for fusion, you have to be able to pick apart the cultures that are in there so you could taste, that it's maybe Mexican and Chinese. But I think if it's just a beautiful marriage of flavors, then it's like most of my favorite people who are very well blended culturally. So the cocktail that I'll be making is called Luna, and it is a combination inspired by the port flip, which I love port wine, especially in the holidays. And I really love port flips. Just wine and creamy cocktails I think aren't done enough. And then the Gaelic flip is really, really nice in that it has the egg yolk and it's just got a beautiful texture. So I kind of brought those together to create a cocktail called the Luna. We can flip to the next slide so you guys can see it. And we're going to be using the Appleton 12-year rare cask, which I know Monique loves. Do you want to tell us about it a little bit?
Oh, yes, I definitely want to tell you about rare casks. So Appleton 12-year-old rare cask, as you see Chandler holding there, is what you would call the part of our portfolio that becomes a bit more on the elevated side. So you can make a great elevated cocktail with it. The taste profiles obviously is the orange peel top note that Appleton Estate is loved for. But also we've got that hint of cacao, which is Jamaican dark chocolate, and also our Blue Mountain coffee, that you get that essence there, and that oakiness, that vanilla. So you get a bit more of a creamy, but a little bit going into the dryness of the 12-year rare cask. So I love that you chose rare cask, because that is the expression that brought me to Appleton Estate. So it's my favorite.
Oh, okay. So, I may or may not be trying to win you over. I love it. Honestly, I love the mouthfeel of it. It's just really nice and unctuous without being overpowering. Right. I like things that kind of stick with you. That's kind of how I build my cocktails, build my recipes for food. I like those drinks and those dishes that make you think about them later. Not necessarily that you taste them later, but that you're like thinking about it. So I kind of wanted to also bring in that red wine-ish element. So I'm going to add something else from the Campari portfolio, which is going to be the Cinzano Vermouth Rosso. And I just really wanted this cocktail to focus on the top note, that orange that comes out in the rum, because I felt like it was so, so pretty. So for this cocktail, we're going to use 1.5 ounces of the Appleton 12-year rare cask. And then I'm going to use 1/2 ounce of the Cinzano Rosso Vermouth. And then I have an oleo sacrum, and I know there's a lot of bartenders that watch this, and I know a lot of people know how to make an oleo sacrum. It's a fairly easy process where you macerate or marinate, if you will, citrus peels and sugar, and that will cause them to release an oil, which will cause that to become a syrup. And while that is a beautiful process, and I will do it all year long, when it comes to the holidays, I have very little time. And I also like to support small businesses and friends. So I actually know some people that have a really cool company out of Louisiana, and their syrups are sometimes better than mine, quite honestly. So if they can save me the trouble of making an oleo sacrum, I will do that. So I'm using 1/2 ounce of Cocktail and Sons oleo sacrum. I'll put that in there. And then I have 1 egg yolk. I'm very lucky to have parents that live out in the countryside in Texas. They live in the boonies, as we say. So I get farm fresh eggs, which are delicious. I'm going to do 1 dash of orange bitters. And then I'm going to add a 3/4 ounce of heavy cream. All right, I'm going to pour that in there. And I'm going to ice my shaker. And I'm going to shake for about 10 to 15 seconds. Oh, great. Oh, yeah. It looks so good. Okay, so this particular cocktail, I'm going to strain up into a coupe. And it's going to be different than the one in the picture, just because I like showing off all of my vintage glassware, mainly so that I have a purpose to buy more. A little bit of a problem. All right, just strain that up. And then I really did want to bring out the citrus note from the rum, but also some of those herbal notes that are in the vermouth. So for my garnish, I have a lemon wheel with some thyme in it. And that is called Luna.
That looks lovely, Chandler.
So
oh my gosh. I can smell that from here because with that
so
vermouth and that rum, oh yeah, that looks lovely. I like the fact that you use thyme as well for the garnish with the lemon.
Oh, thank you. It's by far my favorite herb.
Yeah.
And I'm a big sucker for trying to come up with names. I think names say a lot about the cocktail. Sometimes they make sense to just the person who made them. Sometimes they make sense when you have the cocktail. But drinking this to me felt really soft and comforting, which sometimes I feel is kind of hard for a cold beverage. I feel like warm beverages in the winter just have that like really comforting feeling. And I found that happening in this cocktail. So for me, it was kind of like really cozy at night in my home looking at the moon. So I called it Luna, which is moon in Spanish. And it's just got that kind of creamy face of like when the moon hangs a little low and it's a little yellow. So that's where the name comes from.
I see it. I'm visualizing.
It's really good. I know I'm biased, but it's really good. It's really interesting how the fruitiness comes through. It really does. The rum just shines in that cocktail. Oh, so good.
I definitely want to give people a chance as well if there's anybody that wants to get the recipes. So we'll pop them in the chat at the end for folks too. But let's see what else we have.
Ooh, okay. So we'll go back to our slideshow. And I'm really excited about this one. This is actually, okay, so the thing in the picture, it looks very unassuming. So that's called Old Man's Milk. And this is kind of a Scottish eggnog traditionally. And it's, excuse me, it's a very, I swallowed something. I need to have a drink. So it's, I'm regretting not having water. But that's okay. We'll fix that one sec. Much better. Well, guys, this is just me, clumsy as always. I can trip over air and choke on absolutely nothing. But Old Man's Milk is a traditional eggnog out of Scotland. It's whipped in its format. So usually you take egg yolks, whip them, egg whites, whip them, and traditionally they sweeten theirs with powdered sugar. And it's really tasty. It's just really clean, very classic tasting type of eggnog. And it's actually the recipe I use for almost every holiday. I always do this whipped eggnog because it batches really, really well. So if we can go to the next slide. My recipe is called Honey and Smoke. So the recipe that you see on screen will fill a 750 milliliter bottle. It doesn't look like a whole lot, but when you whip the egg whites, the egg yolk, and the cream, obviously that body is going to expand. You'll have a lot of volume. So I didn't want to demo this on camera because it gets really loud and it requires a lot of bowls, but I did record a video. So we can play that, and then afterwards I have some already prepared, and I'll show you how to serve it. So if we can, play the video.
That video.
Yeah. That set hopefully looks familiar. Same place we are here. But yeah, so I have 2 egg yolks, and you can see I'm still using the Cocktail & Sons syrups. They have a beautiful ginger honey that is probably my favorite for a hot toddy in the world, but it's also my secret weapon for eggnog. Ginger and honey is such an unexpected, beautiful flavor profile for an eggnog.
And is your ginger honey syrup, Chandler, just like a regular how you make a syrup, or is there?
Oh yeah, if you wanted to, you could just make a honey syrup, a 1-to-1 ratio, add in some really finely grated ginger. You could heat it on low if you really want to infuse the flavor quickly, or you could just let it sit over a couple days and let it infuse slowly.
Nice.
Yeah, I love ginger and honey. It's such a good combo.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is probably the lengthiest part, is you do really want to whisk those egg yolks for about a full minute, and that's just so that they get really nice and creamy. If you were doing it with, say, sugar, they would get pale in color, but because we're already using a syrup, you don't have to do that. And you could use any syrup, honestly. Ginger honey is what I'm using for the recipe, but you could use an oleo, you could use a spice syrup. So usually when I do this, I have 3 bowls side by side. If anyone wants to go and check out my stories on Instagram, you can see the picture of me preparing it this morning. But after I beat the egg yolks and the syrup, I set it aside. I beat the whipped cream, or the heavy cream. And you want to go for soft peaks. You don't want to whip it too much. You will get butter.
Yeah.
And then if you do that, though, then go ahead and make a hot butter drum and just whip some new stuff for the eggnog. Because once it's butter, you can't make it back into whipped cream.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
butter?
It's yucky.
Yeah. It's not good. I mean, it's not good in this eggnog. It'd be good for other things.
Right.
And then we have the egg whites. So we're going to whip those as well. And as you can see, I'm not adding any other sweetener, right? The syrup is just in that first part with the egg yolks.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to add any additional sugars.
Just for anybody who's watching who may not be a bartender, and they may go, ooh, I don't know about drinking, egg that's not cured. Is there a reason why they should be okay with this preparation?
Well, depending on where you get your eggs, most eggs are pasteurized, which makes them safe. Also, you're not consuming them in massive quantities. If you've ever had like a lemon meringue pie, you've consumed egg whites raw because it just gets like toasted on the top. So I think most people just don't realize how many ways we can consume raw eggs, but they're completely safe. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, if you did want to, if you did have some kind of reservation about it, you could alternatively put the syrup into the egg whites and create a French meringue where you cook it a little bit and then put that into the egg yolk. So it's absolutely possible. If anybody would like to know how to do that, just hit me up. I'll be more than happy to give you the instructions. It would end up more custardy, though. I will say that. The texture will be a little more custardy. This texture makes it really fluffy. Oh, so very important taste test. Stick your finger in it if you're at home. If you're in public, use a spoon. But that is this right here, before you put in the milk that I just put in, that's where you can adjust and add more syrup if you want to. But quite honestly, this recipe uses Long Branch wild turkey bourbon, and it has a certain sweetness to it. So believe it or not, with the small amount of syrup and the small amount of whiskey that's in here, it ends up perfectly balanced. And then you can bottle it if you want to take it to your friends, or you could just put it in a pitcher with a straw and drink it yourself. But yeah, see, all of that filled up that bottle immediately. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, all right. Yeah, you can put a little tag on the bottle, make it gift pretty, and then give it to somebody if you like. So that is how you make honey and smoke as the batch. I'm going to show you my preferred serve, which I didn't want to do this. Hopefully it'll be visible on camera, but I have a small portion of the honey and smoke here. I don't know if my lights are too bright. White is a really hard color, but it is separated. So when it sits in your fridge, it will separate for a little bit, and that's fine. You just give it a shake. Nothing will happen. It'll still stay nice and fluffy, but it'll just separate because of density. So my particular favorite serve is to be a little over the top and extra, but Long Branch whiskey has that mesquite in it, that little bit of mesquite smoke, and I kind of wanted to just inject a little bit more of that into the cocktail. I feel like smoke and eggnog just makes me think of drinking it outside by a campfire. So if you're unable to do that, like a lot of people I know that live in apartments, this is kind of a cool way to get that kind of feel without having to actually light a bonfire. So I have a rocks glass. You could absolutely use like a coffee mug if you wanted to be super traditional. And I have these mesquite chips that I'm going to light on fire and hopefully not set off my fire alarm. I've never done this in my recording studio, so we shall see. Adventure, adventure. All right, so we got some mesquite chips smoking. I'm going to let that smoke the glass. I should reach out to, I think there was someone on PDX a couple days ago, or maybe last week, where they have this cool like smoke topper where you can smoke your cocktails with this really cool device. You could totally do that if you don't want to be old school like this.
I've seen those.
Have you seen it?
Toppers. Those are really cool, yeah.
Yeah, I've been wanting to try them. I think they look really cool because it's like a reverse incense. You see the smoke kind of like dive into the glass instead of fill it up this way. I really like it.
Yeah.
But all right, so I really, really love eggnog, especially this particular recipe. So I'm not going to put any ice in this. I have had it heavily chilled in my fridge. And because it's thick, it really does maintain its temperature quite well. Oh, yeah. Perks of being at my own bar is I get to lick all of my own utensils. That's the best part. Like licking the beaters when you grow up as an adult just becomes like licking all of your utensils. So my preferred serve is to smoke the glass, pour the eggnog into the glass, and then serve it with a ginger snap cookie. I will make my own if I have the time. I really do love Tweels. They're like really thin and crispy French style cookies. But next best case scenario, there's a ginger cookie called Anna's. They are so tasty. They're like this really pretty like flower shape. And they're just really, really like authentically ginger tasting. All right, so mesquite smoke in there. Fill my glass with some eggnog. Top it off with a cookie. You could add some grated nutmeg if you like. And there you go, guys. That is honey and smoke. Yeah, that's the stuff.
That looks yummy too. Gosh, I'm
So
jealous.
good. If I could send this through the mail, like if this would keep in the mail, I would. But you said you've been to Texas, so just come see me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my favorite right now. I could drink this breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, I will say what I do like about this recipe is it's really adaptable. So the recipe you see that I had on screen is kind of a middle of the road in richness. It isn't overly sweet. It's not overly heavy. You could drink a tall glass of it and still be fine. If you wanted to make it richer, you could use more cream or half and half instead of the milk. If you wanted to make it lighter, you could opt for skim milk instead of the whole milk. If you wanted to add a little bit of a different flavor profile, you could always sub that milk for almond, hemp, coconut, any of those things. So it's a really adaptable recipe while still being able to maintain the same flavor profile. Because I know a lot of people that don't like rich, heavy drinks, but really love those flavors. So you can go either way with it. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah. And I like that you picked the Long Branch because Long Branch isn't super, it's not super boozy as a whiskey, you know, and it's very approachable. It's one of the whiskeys that I like to drink on the side when I'm not drinking rum. So yeah, it's definitely, and I love the mesquite. I love that mesquite taste from Long Branch that you get versus some of the other whiskeys in our portfolio, which is just like straight, you know, Kentucky whiskey. But that Long Branch adds in that smokiness, and I love that.
It really is nice. Honestly, I remember the first time I tried it, I was surprised at how subtle the mesquite was, because mesquite, coming from Texas, mesquite is mesquite. Like, it's everywhere, it's on everything, and it's a flavor that you just really recognize. And I remember tasting a whiskey expecting to just get smacked in the face with mesquite like I was smoking my own brisket. But it was really subtle, which is really, really nice. And even smoking the glass still keeps it subtle. It just helps kind of bring forward those aromatics really nicely. And, I mean, mesquite came from Texas. McConaughey kind of did the whole all right thing.
All right.
The whiskey really good, so.
Yeah.
I had to bring a little. I had to bring Texas with me. It's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Now, our last cocktail, though, this one is very near and dear to my heart, and this is where Chandler Chef Brain goes absolutely crazy. So Cola de Mono is a Chilean eggnog riff where they use clove, they use evaporated milk, and they use coffee. And it's very often bottled. It's equally as popular as coquito within the confines of Chile. I don't think it's gained like a huge following outside of the country, although it should because it's delicious. And I love coffee. I'm one of those people that I don't drink Starbucks a whole lot, but when I do during the holidays, I'm really salty when they do not bring the eggnog latte back. Because I love eggnog and coffee together. It's such a good combo. But yeah, Cola de Mono is absolutely delicious. And then I cannot say the other name properly. It is Vietnamese, but it is Soda Suahatga. And I'm butchering that because I do not speak that language. But I actually came across this recipe while I was halfway through already designing this class, and it completely knocked every other idea I had out of the water. I was recently in Hawaii. I used to live there, and I went to my favorite Vietnamese restaurant. They have the best pho on the island, and I walked in and I saw on the menu this thing called egg soda. So I asked her how they make it, and they take an egg yolk, they beat it, usually by hand in like a pint glass, into condensed milk, and then they just add club soda. That is it. It's very, very simple. It's a street drink. Culturally, for them, it's viewed as healthy because of the condensed milk and the egg. I'm not entirely sure where that information comes from, but that's what she told me. She's like, oh yeah, it's great for your health. It's really tasty. And I drank it, and it tasted like the lightest milkshake I've ever had, and it was so good. So then I was like, this would be really good with like coffee and some spices, and then I was thinking about eggnog, and then I thought about Cola de Mono, and it just kind of all brought these things together, where I came up with our next cocktail, which we can go to the next slide. So the next cocktail is called Number 5. And I believe that sometimes things just happen for a reason. The universe lines up, whatever you want to call it. But Number 5 was the number of that beverage on the menu that I had when I had it in Hawaii. I had been assaulted by the song Mambo Number 5 the week prior. And then I really wanted to add savory ingredient into some eggnog, so I came up with soy sauce, which has umami, which is considered the 5th flavor. So hence the name Number 5.
Oh,
very
wow. That's cool.
Right? It's like this whole thing. Like, no one would ever listen to that story, lengthy, sitting at the bar. They'd just like, well, can I taste it?
Yeah.
But this is kind of where I get to teach you a little food technique while I'm also doing cocktails, because it's almost impossible for me to do. Oh, yay, Austin's had it before. Austin Millspot. I know that man. He's a cool dude in Dallas. Watched him get iced the other day, which was fantastic. But yes, so I soy sauce cured some egg yolks. Have you ever heard of that before, Monique?
No, never.
Okay.
Soy sauce cure egg?
Okay, so let's talk about egg curing just first before we get into the cocktail. So are you a fan of ramen or udons at all?
Of course. I love ramen.
Okay. They're so good. Have you ever had one of those like perfectly cooked ramen eggs that are just like the yolk is runny but set?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I used to do all the time as a cook when I was in kitchens more than I was in bars was cure egg yolks. So you basically would separate the yolk from the white. And the classic way that I cure my egg yolks is in a salt-sugar combo. So 50% sugar, 50% salt. I usually use a sea salt and castor sugar, like just plain white sugar. And you mix that together in a 50-50 ratio. And you basically put a little bed down of the powder, and then you add your egg yolks, just softly lay them on the salt sugar mix, and then you cover them in that salt sugar mix, and you leave them overnight. Now, as the days progress, usually it wouldn't take more than like 36 to 48 hours, but those egg yolks will cure so that they are entirely firm. And what you can do with that later, my favorite use for it in one of the restaurants I used to run was to grate that on top of a Cobb salad instead of having a boiled egg, which is traditionally in a Cobb salad. I love putting it on a sandwich. I love putting it on any salad and any soup. I've actually done it on a couple desserts because it looks beautiful. It looks like these bright yellow ribbons. Use a microplane. You can just literally grate an egg yolk. I know that sounds crazy, but you can grate this cured egg yolk, and it goes great on everything. If you like avocado toast, grated cured egg yolk.
Ooh, that sounds so good.
It is so good. It is so good because you get all that richness of that eggs can bring to things without having to accept the texture of an egg yolk. Because there's so many textures you can have with an egg yolk, right? Some people like it runny. Some people like it cooked all the way through.
Right.
But when you're able to cure it to where it's firm enough to grate, your options are endless.
Yeah.
So, back to the soy sauce cured eggs. I have two here.
Gotta see this.
Yeah, so it's going to be kind of hard to see because they're tiny, but I do have some up-close photos on my storyline on Instagram. But it's a very simple process. You just take an egg yolk, and you soak it in some soy sauce. It's really that simple. Now, I did a lot of tests. For this cocktail, it's a 3-hour soy sauce cured egg yolk. Now, if you really like ramens and udons or just like that texture of the ramen egg or the udon egg that most people know it by, if you leave this in there for about 4 to 6 hours, it will have that set texture that's like still runny, but a little bit like, what's the word I'm like velvety, you know, like how it just kind of like oozes, but it's not raw. So if you were to take, let's see if I can get one on my little cocktail spoon. So if you were to take just this yolk and put that on like a ramen right now, it would be like a ramen egg. But we are going to put it in a cocktail. So, soy sauce cured eggs. I will say through experimenting with this cocktail, once the eggs are cured, you do want to remove them from the soy sauce unless you want the texture to change. The longer they soak, the firmer they become, and the harder it will be to incorporate into a cocktail. Now, if you put it in food, that's fine, but we're trying to get a little bit of that richness, that unctuousness that comes with the egg yolk while still getting some of the umami that is soaked up from the soy sauce. So, I'm going to take a shaker tin, and we're going to start with the good stuff, which, I mean, yes, it is the soy sauce cured egg yolk, but it's also the Appleton rum. So we're going to do 1 1/4 ounce. And I know that's an odd measurement. I feel like everybody does 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces. But trust me, this is, like, I tried all the different ratios, and this is what really comes through because this is a really delicate cocktail. So if you go too much further with the rum, it's going to take over the cocktail and not actually let the rum shine. So we're going to do 1.25 ounces of the Appleton, and then we're going to do 1.5 ounces of condensed milk. And if you can, get a squeeze bottle because it makes your life way easier than opening a super messy can of condensed milk. All right, so condensed milk, bring that all the way in there. I usually do this with like a chopstick. Make sure you get all the condensed milk out of there. It is kind of goopy. All right, then we're gonna add a 3-hour soy cured egg yolk. Put that in there. And then we're gonna add 1 ounce of espresso. I'm really big, like I said, about supporting small companies. This one, while is smaller than most, it's also very near and dear to my heart. My parents started a company a year ago now, where they bring in coffee that we used to drink when we all lived in Costa Rica. So they bring in the green beans from our friend's farm, and they roast it in their backyard. It's part of their retirement plan. It's super adorable watching them build this business. And I get like all the coffee perks in the world. It's fantastic. So I have my espresso, and then I have Clove infused chocolate bitters. And that clove is coming from the idea that I had with the cola de mono. I just really like the coffee and clove. I'm going to do 2 drops. And then we are going to shake that. I'm going to get some of these things out of the way so it's a little easier to see. So I'm going to ice my shaker, and we're going to shake the bejeez out of it. You're going to do about 10 to 15 seconds on this as well, but you do want to make sure you're shaking really vigorously so that you can really get that egg yolk broken up. It is going to be a little bit thicker than a regular egg yolk from curing in that soy sauce. All right. So, for this cocktail, I'm super excited, obviously because I love the idea of it, also because it's got so many of my favorite things. It's got umami, it's got rum, it's got coffee, it's got eggs and like crazy chef stuff. So instead of using...
If you're shaking the cured egg, do you shake it as much as you shake if it wasn't cured? Is there like a need to shake it less, or is it gonna is something gonna happen to the egg if you shake it?
I wouldn't say something's gonna happen to the egg, but you do have 2 really thick ingredients in the cocktail. So you have the cured egg and you have the condensed milk, which is a little thicker than most syrups. So I would shake it for the same amount of time, but a little bit more vigorously. Okay. Or if vigorously is harder, then shake it for maybe an additional 5 seconds, just to make sure that it all gets really nicely combined. But nothing's gonna happen to your egg. It'll be fine. So instead of using just a club soda, which would be the traditional soda cha hatga, I really wanted to play with the cacao notes in the rum, the coffee notes in the rum, and the coffee, obviously. So I found these the other day. Pellegrino makes these Essenza seltzers where it's just like lightly flavored, and I've seen a lot of citrus. They have one now that is cacao and coffee. So it's just the club soda, it's not sweetened, but it has the flavors of cacao and coffee. So I'm gonna add 3 ounces of that. And I like to add it to my shaker tin, so it mixes once in there and once when I'm pouring it into my glass. And I have a really tall highball glass. This cocktail actually requires quite a bit of room, about 12 to 14 ounce glass. And I'm going to fill it with my favorite kind of ice, pebble ice or Sonic ice. The people at my local Sonic are tired of me ordering ice. They do not sell the actual bags. They only sell the cups, so I have to order a ton of cups of ice. All right, so I like to dome this just a little bit while making a terrible ice mess. And then I will say you really do need to double strain this cocktail just because the texture of that egg sometimes will want to be too thick, and you don't want to get like a little chunk of cured egg. You want it to be really nice and silky. So double strain just to avoid that. I'm going to fill that up. Oh yeah, beautiful. And then as a garnish, I'm going to do some fresh grated dark chocolate.
Again, to enhance that Appleton Estate 12-year rare cask cacao taste profile.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to have to wait to drink this because I forgot a straw and I put way too much ice for me to be able to drink without a straw. But that is what I call the number 5.
I love it. I love it. And you know, one other thing that I want to mention about the rare cask and why it works in a lot more creamy style cocktails is because that aging process, the minimum aged on the 12-year is 12 years. That's the youngest drop in the bottle. but you've got a range here of that 12 into 21 range that allows that kind of well-balanced, rounded, dry sense of on the palate. And so what people have to understand about premium aged rum is that it something that's aged a little longer can lend itself to cocktails that are a bit more creamier. And that's why we always suggest keep it simple, but elevate, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I always think I try to keep the same goal when I'm cooking as well as when I'm doing a cocktail. I know sometimes the cocktails I make seem a little much to people who don't necessarily come from a culinary background because I infused the bitters and I cured the egg and all those kinds of things. But on its surface, most of these cocktails are fairly simple. It's got something creamy, the rum, and then something to sweeten it up. And I just wanted to take those and make them the best that they could be, right? Because you can take rum and put it in so many different cocktails, and sometimes the rum shines, sometimes the rum will be, you know, a companion to whatever else is in the drink. But I really wanted to find a way to not only elevate the rum, but elevate the ingredients that are going with the rum so they can all rise together. Because that's the entire purpose when I'm doing anything in the kitchen or the bar, is to make everything rise together to become an experience rather than just something you drink or eat.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the thing too, you know, there's not a lot of spirits that you want to use in a culinary form. But definitely rum lends to that. It's obviously one of the most diverse spirits in the world, so it lends to a lot of different a lot of different conformities. And so that's why I love rum in its purest state, but I love to see it used in its different ways. This today, the two cocktails that you made with the rum, love, because I think for me, someone who loves like a nice coquito, but you want something a little bit different, you know, you don't want the traditional eggnog or something that you're used to drinking. You definitely showed us how we can do something different. And the second cocktail with the whiskey, for anybody who's a whiskey drinker, I'm pretty sure they will love that. Like, switch over from your hot toddy today, please.
Yes, please do. Please do. And interestingly enough, specifically the one with whiskey, but you could also sub the Long Branch for Appleton, and it would be just as beautiful. If I was going to do that, I'd probably use a different smoke. I'd probably use like a cherry wood or a pecan wood, just so you have some more fruity or nut tones with those aromatics. But it also lends itself really well for like a warm eggnog. And it's interesting because eggnog originally was a hot beverage, and now it's not as much. I really enjoy warm or hot eggnog. So if you did want to take the honey and smoke and then make it warm, the best way to do that would just be put it in a bain-marie, or also known as a water bath. So you would put it in a bowl or a container that is heat-proof, so like a glass bowl or a stainless steel bowl, and then set it over a pot of very, very softly simmering water where it doesn't touch the water. It just kind of gets the steam kissing the bottom of the bowl, and then just slowly whisk it until it's warmed all the way through, and then have some hot eggnog instead.
Nice. What about large format, batch format? Someone in the chat asked, you know, how do you suggest making these cocktails in a larger format?
Beautiful idea. So the honey and smoke batches upwards like almost flawlessly. I literally have multiplied it times 100. You do require very, very large bowls to whisk that much whipped cream and egg whites, but it is doable. As far as the number 5, you can do the base, which would be the rum, the egg, the condensed milk, all of those things without the soda. And you could have that mixed. If it was me and I was going to batch it, I would put all of those in a blender and add like 2 ice cubes to just get a little bit of dilution. And then I would strain that into a bottle and then have like my little 6-pack of Pellegrinos or club soda if you can't find the coffee Pellegrino. And then you can just serve to order, essentially. Because most of the time, the soda cha hatka is they take those ingredients, or they just use the egg and the condensed milk, beat it in the glass, add soda, and then just add ice. So it doesn't have to be this formal. It's a very easy cocktail to batch up. As far as the Luna, I would say you can batch that one, but because of the frothiness, it will have a layer that settles. So you could also very easily make, I would maybe not do more than 8 at a time, and I would probably put it in an immersion blender so it would have enough aeration. And then the only thing is it will separate over time, just kind of like the honey and smoke. So just make sure to stir before serving so you don't just have like a ton of foam in one glass and then all this liquid in another.
Right. Yeah. We have another question too, Chandler.
Someone
wants to know, since many creamy cocktails do not contain citrus, are there any suggestions for replacing acid to avoid them from tasting flat or flabby?
I love the use of the word flabby for a cocktail. Yeah. I love unusual descriptors for drinks and food. Quite honestly, you're very right. There's not a whole lot of citrus in creamy cocktails. However, I will say I have found that if you're wanting to kind of amp up the flavor so it doesn't taste super flat, grated zest goes a long way. Yeah. And then there's also a lot of acidifying modifiers that you can get like in a powder format. Online at a bunch of health food stores, and you can add like a pinch of those to your cocktail, or like citric acid being one of them. Just use cautiously because they're much stronger and concentrated than like the actual citrus juice. Yeah. In our Caribbean
libations, creamy libations, we do use that lime zest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's also a lot of, if you are fortunate enough to live in a part of the world where you have access to like a lot of tropical fruits, there's a lot of other fruits outside of citrus that have acidity. You can, I'm trying to think of the names of them in English. Sometimes I forget. Sop. Yeah, soursop is one of them. Cas, which I think is like a specific type of guava, but it's the one that's white with the green skin, not red inside. Certain pineapples, if they're in a different stage of ripening, can be quite acidic. Cranberry, I mean, we are in the season of the holidays. Cranberry is wildly acidic. You could use that as well. I would just be cautious when using something that's not a citrus acidifier, because sometimes the levels of that pH are going to be so high that it'll curdle. But yeah, there's definitely options. There's definitely a lot of options, but zest is like probably my favorite. I love them.
Zest is probably the favorite for me too. I mean, for somebody who's used to the indigenous flavors of different fruits, I think you can't go wrong with the zest. Like I said, you just don't use a lot of it.
So I did want to share something with you before we go. So I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the class that I've progressed from, chef to bartending. I still do chef things. I just don't work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week in a kitchen, but I do chef things. But I designed a new game that I'm super excited about. During the first part of the pandemic, I became friends with a lot of really, really cool and talented people within the industry across the country, and realized that there was this whole community out there that I didn't know existed. And just through the amount of talks and the amount of conversations that we had about funny things, I came up with the game. I'm going to show it to you, because I don't know if you've seen it yet, Miss Mimi.
Yeah.
But yeah, check it out. So it's called, gotta find my lighting, there we go. So it's called Heard, because that's what you say when someone tells you something in the kitchen. And the logo is a knife for the kitchen, stacked dishes for servers or front of house and dish pit, and a cocktail shaker for barbacks and bartenders. But basically, if you've ever played Cards Against Humanity, same idea, but it's a very specific humor. So the tagline, or the phrase on the side of the box, says, Karens, non-tippers, owner-knowers, and campers are not welcome here. And for the love of all things Negroni, please don't do coke in the bathroom. But yeah, I just started an Instagram account for it. It's called @Heard. It's not called. The handle is @HeardCardGame. And
we just posted it for everybody to see to make sure. Yeah.
I'm honestly more excited about just watching people play my game than I am about selling it. So it's available for pre-order. And I did make some executive decisions as it is my own company. I am a one-woman owned company. I decided to go with a smaller printer that was US based. So some of the printing times are a little longer, but I figured I'm a small person. Why not support other small people? I did go through Mover and Shaker to design some limited edition lapel pins. So the first 85 orders will get those. And very soon, or hopefully here shortly, there will be some expansion packs, hopefully sponsored by some brands, and there'll be more cool swag coming. So yeah, pre-order your game now, guys, and drink some eggnog.
Yeah, and for everyone also, we also on the Portland Cocktail Week website, you can go Portland Cocktail Week, so that's pdxcw.com/gift guide 2021, where you can also find Chandler's game.
Oh my gosh, there's also just way too many cool people in there. I feel so humbled to be in the gift guide. There's a cool cookbook, the Sioux Chef, native indigenous food. I love seeing so much color in this gift guide. There's so many nonprofits, so many women, so many brown and black people. I was just very, very thrilled to be a part of it, let alone be featured. So yeah, I'm on page 6.
Applause to Portland Cocktail Week for the gift guide.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Sure. The representation in there is fantastic. Definitely. You know, and we need that at a time now where our industry is just like locking arms together, and it's really cool to see all of the different things that we're doing to keep each other in the loop and keep on to one another, you know. So I really like to see all of the different innovation things that's happening in our industry, and I hope we can continue that into 2022 for sure.
Oh, I do too. I really do. And I'm going to put out a request because I have this idea that with my Herd Game Instagram account, one of the things that I remember when I was in kitchens all the time, I've worked in so many kitchens across the world with so many different people, and I see so many people that just don't always hear thank you for what you do. Right. So if anybody out there has some bar back, some dish pit, some prep guy, even if it's a phenomenal manager, bartender, but somebody who doesn't get a lot of attention, maybe they don't have a huge social media following, maybe they're always, in the back of the house doing things that they're not necessarily paid to do, but they have that integrity, send me a picture, send me their name, and I want to shout them out on my social media account because somebody deserves to be seen, and I would love to be able to do that for more people. So
that's beautiful, Chandler. That's so beautiful. Oh, thank you. Thank you for today. Again, your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, just the thought you put into all the 3 cocktails. It was like I could see the vision, and I definitely want to say to you, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Going into the new year, there's so much more that we're going to be doing. For those of you who really enjoyed the class, definitely follow Campari Community on our Instagram page. We have lots of updates of different classes that's coming on in our community as well. If you've enjoyed this class, please make sure to hit like or love button and show some love on the Facebook page. We want to see more from Portland Cocktail Week in the classes. Yes. So keep in the loop with us. I know sometimes everybody's like, oh, another webinar. Yes, another webinar, but it's great information.
It really is.
Yeah, and if you're new to bartending, you can follow us on YouTube page as well. We've got lots of previous episodes. It's on there. This one will be on there as well. So on behalf of Portland Cocktail Week, myself, Monique Brackett, the Jamaican Rum Portfolio Ambassador. That's such a mouthful.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm the same way. It's like on behalf of Chandler Tomayko, chef, bartender, game designer, eggnog drinker.
Right.
Dance lover.
All of the
different like a shirt
that you see. I mean, you look lovely in your green. I was going to wear red, but then I was like, it's going to be like too much. But
yeah. I don't get to wear green a lot. I love green. It's my favorite color.
Yeah, it's a power color. But again, everybody, thank you for joining us today on behalf of the entire Portland Cocktail Week family, team. We appreciate you joining us.
Yes.
And have a great rest of the day, rest of the holiday. Happy
Mhm.
Hanukkah to everyone out there. Yeah, upcoming Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, everything, all of
Oh my
the
gosh,
above, right?
so many reasons to celebrate. So many reasons.
So many reasons to celebrate, especially as we head into 2022 and keep being inspired.
Yeah. Well, cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And thanks to everybody for tuning
Cheers.
in.